Can a mermaid tell you how to live life? Well, we're going to explore that question today. Hey guys, I'm Andy, and this is Mindset Matters More. And I am talking with the amazing Layla Evans. And she's a certified high performance life and business coach, the host of the Do Life podcast, a serial entrepreneur, voice actor, professional mermaid, and a lifelong explorer of personal transformation, from building businesses and guiding people to unlock their potential, to stepping into the world of voice work, and even embracing the whimsical side of life as a mermaid performer. Layla brings a unique blend of practical wisdom, mindset mastery, and unapologetic joy to everything she does. Whether she's diving deep into self-sabotage, workplace trauma, or high-performance habits on her podcast, or helping clients rewrite their stories, Layla's mission is simple yet powerful: to help you do life on your terms. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Layla Evans. Yay!
What an amazing introduction. I am blushing. Thank you so much.
I am so excited to have you on the show today. And as you know, I am super fascinated about your life as a mermaid. I kind of want to start there, but I would really like to talk to you about, personal transformation and your own personal transformation, and how did your life transform throughout your life to bring you to the point of exploring being a mermaid?
So there's so much to unpack there. The the mermaid part came from COVID. It was basically just a very simple. I saw a TikTok with a girl swimming around as a mermaid, and I thought, I know she's 20 years younger than me, but I want to be her when I grow up. And I reached out to her. And I asked her a million questions, and she was super nice. We're actually still very good friends to this day. The mermaiding community is very inclusive and feels like family. So I'm really glad I found that community. And it was one of those things where, everyone's like, how long have you been a mermaid? Well, professionally, 6 years, but honestly, my entire life. Like, I have three biological daughters, and when they were little, I would always teach them how to swim like a mermaid, and we would swim with our feet together as a mermaid. So when I started doing my mermaid training and certifications, it came naturally to me. And I think it's so important as adults. There's so many mixed reactions. If I say I'm a mermaid, I get some people like, oh, so you cosplay, or oh, so you just want to play dress up, or there's just weird judgment that I didn't anticipate. And I think it's important that we embrace our creativity as adults because, you hear the phrase all work and no play. You have to play. And this is my creative outlet. And I think everybody should have at least one creative outlet. Do something that makes you feel like a kid, that makes you unapologetically happy. And that's my go-to. It's amazing I get paid for it too.
One of the important things that you brought up is community, right? And that support and being able to navigate, because, not everybody understands what other people's hobbies or passions are because they're so afraid to express it themselves. And then having that support of the community to be able to do that. So how did you go from, exploring your passion and your fun into making it into something that you get paid to do?
Mermaiding is not a cheap hobby. Everything is expensive. The tails are anywhere from 1,200 to 6,000 for, good quality tails. You can get cheap Amazon tails, but they're not safe to swim in. They can actually cause drowning. So I don't recommend doing that. If you just want a mermaid for like picture purposes or something, those are fine. But for real mermaiding, not at all. And everything is expensive. You have to get certified. You get PADI or NAUI certified. You have to be safety, the equipment, the so much goes into it. That I decided if I'm going to do this, it needs to be somewhat profitable. Um, and so from there, I was able to talk to other mermaids who have been in the industry and get hired at Renaissance fairs and aquariums and uh, corporate events. I mean, nobody wants to go to your boring corporate events where they talk about numbers for 2 hours. So enticing your staff with and have a picture with a mermaid or come meet the mermaid. People are like, what are they talking about? I'm actually going to show up to this work event. So it's just kind of fun. I do a lot of charity work. I work directly with the Ronald McDonald House. We make food for the families, and then sometimes I'll dress up as a mermaid and read to the kids. And so there's a lot that goes into it. But like I said, it's so rewarding. And I turned it into a business just to help pay for itself.
And sometimes it can be like that, right? It's something that you're so passionate about doing, and then turning it into a business doesn't mean that it's going to be profitable. But at the same time, your 9 to 5 can fund your 5 to 9. And, they have all these crazy sayings about like, just doing really what is soul aligned. So I'm assuming that you also attract women who are looking, how can I develop my passion into a business? How can I really live out this part of me that, my 9 to 5 isn't providing me with? What would you say to the person who's like, I have this like passion, but it's just, I don't know what to do with it. How would you guide somebody?
Well, I think there's a couple things there. For one, I've guided a lot of women to finding their purpose and living in their passion. And the biggest misconception is that you have to monetize off of it. Um, you do not necessarily have to profit off of your passion. I fell in love with mermaiding and did it for several years before I turned it into a business. And the business just pays for itself. So it's just a self-fulfilling business. I really, when we get down to the numbers, don't actually make much of a profit from mermaiding. It just pays for itself. So I can continue that hobby because it makes me so happy. And I use, my coaching career is also very rewarding. But the money from that goes to also help fund the travel and some of the other expenses for mermaiding. And so when you go to work and you're working a 9 to 5 or an unfulfilling position, don't look at it as, oh, I hate it here. I hate these people. Like, try to look at it as a positive. Like, this place is funding my passion. This place is funding my dreams. This place is making it possible that I can live a joyous, happy life outside of here. And even if it's just paying the bills, having a roof over your head and a warm bed to sleep in, try to look at it from that mindset. But your passion is something that should make you, like I said, unapologetically happy, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to profit from it. So.
Right, right. And I agree. I worked in corporate for a decade plus, and for me, a lot of the part of me really resenting it was that I didn't have enough gratitude for it. Like, sure, it bought me the cars and the homes and the blah, blah, but I just absolutely felt like it was soul sucking. And, the 9 to 5 was like, it spent so much time, so much of my energy that it felt like, afterwards I couldn't even go to my passions because I just felt so drained. And what I tell people now is that, if you actually lean into your passions after that 9 to 5 that like doesn't feel great all the time, you actually regenerate yourself. You actually tap into this source of love and compassion and wonderful joy that you didn't even know that you could have. So instead of going home and like medicating on TV and drinking or whatever it is that people do, is that if you actually do your passion, it's not just another to do. It's something that is going to like revive you. So how do you find that in working with women, especially if they're trying to find their passion and live out that portion of themselves, have you ever seen them have that shift, that mindset shift of like, my passion really is fueling me, like how to harness that within their like day to day?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. And we talked earlier about how community is so important. And some people might have a passion of crocheting. And they're like,
Mm.
well, what community is there? And you'd be surprised. Every hobby, every passion has a community. You can join like a Facebook group or something outside. And then having that community, having people that have the same passion, really helps ignite that and keep that fire burning. And then when days happen, you have a bad day at work, you don't want to do it. If you've already committed to doing something with other people, it motivates you to do that. And it's more often than not when you don't feel like doing something and you do it anyway, it ends up being 10 times more amazing by the time you're done doing it because you overcame those obstacles and showed up even when you didn't want to. So I think embracing that, finding community, and even if it's the weirdest hobby you can think of, and it's the craziest thing off the wall and you're like, but this makes me happy. It's collecting leaves. I don't know. There's probably a group out there and other people that enjoy those things. So I think it's really important to find people that share the same hobbies and passions as you. So you can have communication, you can have conversation, you can have accountability and just have fun with it. It should just be fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not that it's surprising, but it's surprising. Like when you say, "Oh, the mermaiding community," I'm like, "Of course there is a community for that." Like, of course there is. I have seen, in myself, like I have a bodybuilding community. I have people who, I've seen communities of people who go mushrooming. I've seen people who, like the specific type of dog, and like they have races around pugs. Like there's just so many different opportunities to really connect with people when you live in authenticity. And this page is all about gratitude, authenticity, living in that reality of like, this is who I am and owning it. And so I agree, finding the community to really support you in your interests is integral, especially when it comes to like living in alignment and in joy and happiness. So, what do you think for you has been a turning point in your life where you've decided, I mean, I'm assuming because I feel like everyone goes through trying times, hard times, but what sort of area in your life do you think you've had a moment of clarity where you were just like, no, I'm done with that old life. Let's transition to who Layla really is. Like when you step into that full alignment. Can you maybe share something about that?
Yeah, I think there was an actual definitive moment. I had babies young, which means my babies grew up and moved out while I was still pretty young. And I went through that whole empty nester syndrome and was like, so much of my life and my identity was tied to being a mother. And obviously I'll never not be a mother. I'm still like, I'm all my kids' friends' mom. I was everybody's mom. I was the community mom. Your parents disowned you, come move in with me. Like at one point we had 6 children living in our house that weren't our kids. Um, and even my friends tell me like I'm everybody's mom. So I will never not have that identity. But there was a moment where I was like, this isn't just who I am. One of the things about your purpose is I feel like when you find your purpose, it's not forever, always. Sometimes your purpose is to be a good wife or to be a good spouse or to be a good mom or a good friend or a good partner. And then sometimes that changes. And so where my purpose for, 20 something years was to be the mom, it shifted. And I was like, what do I do with my life? Who am I? I went through this crazy depression. My middle daughter moved away. She moved to, I'm in St. Louis and she moved to Seattle. And so we turned her moving into like a 2 week long road trip. And it was just amazing. We had such a great experience. And while we were gone, my oldest daughter tells me that she found a place and she's moving out. And so for like 2 weeks, I went through this crazy depression and I was so sad. And I'm like, I don't understand why I'm sad. I'm so happy for both of my girls. Like, they couldn't have had better opportunities. Why am I sad? And then it was like, because I felt like I lost my identity and my purpose and
Mhm.
who I was. And so there was just this big vacant hole that I tried to fill with all of these projects. Let me redo the bathroom. Let me deep clean the basement. Let me find something to do with my life. And then finally I sat down and I was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? And I was like, okay, well, I help people. That's who I am. That's what makes me happy. That's what I've always wanted to do. And so I started looking into different ways I could help other people professionally. And a life coaching thing popped up. And I was like, oh, life coaches, they think they know everything. And I just had this whole like weird preconceived notion of what a life coach was. And it kept popping up. You know how the universe does that, where it's just like in your face with something. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. And then there was I did Mind Valley, and I went through like daily meditations, and I was trying to learn things because I was all about self-help and growth and development and trying to figure out my life. And they're like, we have a life coach certification. I'm like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. And they're like, come to this free master class and we'll talk about it. And so I did, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And the first class, like immediately, was like, everything you think you know about life coaching is wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I fell in love. I was like, this is it. This is what I do. And the one thing I've noticed about being in this industry and meeting other life coaches and other people who do these things is most of us have come from a pretty tumultuous background. I don't know a lot of people who want to give back and want to help who haven't had some sort of struggle. And I think that's so beautiful because we are all one decision away from an entirely different life.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that sentiment because, you can just take a left instead of a right and be living in another country. Like you can all of a sudden have this partner who is incredible. Like you can have a new job that is totally fulfilling when you like open yourself up to whatever life has to offer. And you bring up something really important that I want to hone in on. And it's this idea of purpose having their periods of time. Like everybody that I have come across thinks like, oh, my purpose is something that's going to be there forever, something I'm going to do for the rest of my life, something that I'm going to be for the rest of my life, a mission, if you will. That's like, I have to have this done like for the rest of my life. And I have lived at least a dozen lives. I have lived that part of teen mom. I have lived that part of wife. I have lived that part of living in America. I've lived that part of, being an engineer. I've lived that part as, novice bodybuilder. Like I have had so many lives. And in each time, I have also found that like sometimes when I'm like shifting, I'll do that also the busy work. And busy work is not purpose. Like projects, like, yeah, like that might be a good filler, but it's always honing in on like, what is it that my soul and my spirit and my center is really calling me to do? And sitting with that and learning, hey, how can I express that? Just like you did when you were on this path, because, the life kind of was like, hey, this is your calling. This is what you need to do. And you were kind of pulled to it. So how do you find that when people have lost their purpose because, it's just a shift, how do you help people navigate that shift? How do you help people say, that was one part of your life, but let's explore what's the next one? What tools do you like to implement?
So I think there's this big misconception that your purpose is going to be like some eureka moment, like, oh my gosh, that's it. I found it. I know what I'm doing with my life. And it's never that. It's very quiet. It's very subtle. Some of the tools I like to use is what what gave you joy as a child before you had responsibilities, before you had chores and school? Like, what were some of the real raw things that you did as a kid that gave you unprecedented joy? I've seen a lot of people are like, oh, I used to play in the dirt. Like, have you tried gardening? Once again, it doesn't have to bring you money, but if it brings you happiness, That's what's most important. And that's where I think a lot of people think it's going to be this big life-changing thing where they're going to change other people's lives and do amazing stuff. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's as simple as having a house plant that you talk to and you water every day and you watch it grow. And it can be that simple. So I think being realistic with your idea of what your purpose might be. Um, Usually there's three big questions that I like to ask, and it's what did you do as a child that made you happy?
Hmm.
What makes you happy now? And how can you give back? How do you make other people happy? And I think those three questions really help kind of narrow down what you, I don't want to say what you should be doing, but the direction you might want to head in fulfillment. Because usually those three things will make you feel very fulfilled. Um, so
At the very least, it could be a starting point, right? It's like even if it's not gardening, maybe it's building professional sand castles. I don't know, but it can put you in the direction of, you like to work with your hands, explore that. Just side note, like my favorite job of all time was working at a hardware store. Like I absolutely loved working there. And it was always a sense of like helping people to like figure out their problems. And I would always get into trouble because they're like, you're spending too much time with customers. You're spending too much time with customers. Like you have to just get in, get out. And I'm like, yeah, but we're customer service. We're here to serve. Like I think I spent like 1 hour on a phone with a gentleman who was obviously a lot older, who didn't understand like the return process. And I was sitting there on the end, like I got into so much trouble because I'm trying to help this person. And like for me, it's like really getting people to like be of service for people for like that just has been my entire life. And so like finding the clues throughout your life, so I think that those are very powerful questions. So how about like, what is it that you have felt that has been the evolution of your coaching? Like, how did you start? Like, where, at what point, like life coaching is such like a broad spectrum, like of everything, right? So have you been able to like niche it down to something specific, or like, what do you really find is your jam when it comes to coaching?
I've niched down to being like a dark feminine embodiment coach. And
Ugh,
I say those words and everyone's like, what is that? I don't know what it is, but coming from a mermaid, it makes sense.
yes.
Um,
So you're gonna have to explain it. You gotta tell me all about it. Like I know we had this discussion, and I'm so glad we brought it here because I want to know everything about this.
so I feel, and there's many different interpretations and definitions of what the dark feminine is, but I feel like there's a dark feminine and there's a light feminine, and you have to have a balance of both to become the divine feminine. The light feminine is what I feel is societally acceptable from women to be loving and nurturing and kind and caring and thoughtful and submissive. And so I don't focus on that because I feel like we've all been raised to embrace that part of ourselves. But in order to be the divine, we have to have that balance. And so I discuss the dark feminine, which isn't bad, wrong, or evil. It's dark as in hidden in the shadows, the parts of ourselves that we're not as comfortable showing or sharing because of societal expectations for the most part. And those are the parts of us like our sensuality, our rage and anger, our autonomy, our ability to set and enforce healthy boundaries, to say no. Um, those are the parts of us that I think we all need a little bit more not discernment, but just direction and how to harness. And it's so hard when you get frustrated and angry and you can't express that because that's not very ladylike of you. Well, we don't have to be ladylike. And so, as a dark feminine embodiment coach, I work on building confidence and being able to say no without over explaining or guilt. And that's really hard for a lot of people.
Oh, I absolutely agree. As a recovering rageaholic, It was very unbecoming. And I remember being told several times, like, you're a lady, you're not supposed to act like that. You're a woman, you're not supposed to be angry. Like, how dare you? And so it manifested later on in life with very unhealthy relationship to anger that I had a lot to process because I would go through that cycle of, fear, rage, and then guilt, shame, fear, rage, guilt, shame, and never being able to process it until one day I had that, let me love that part of myself into healing. Let me love that part of myself into coherence, into alignment. And what I found was that behind that rage was a lot of fear, was a lot of things that I could then begin to address, but I couldn't hear it until I got right with it, until I accepted it. So, what are some of the let's talk about the sensuality part of it because I've talked so much in my life about rage. I'm kind of over it. So, I want to talk about the sensuality part of it because I think you're right. There's a part of society that doesn't really want women to be sexual beings. They don't want us to be sensual beings. They don't want us to be a part which is like the most natural part. Like that is to be feminine, that is to be woman, is to be the embodiment of, what happens when two people come together, right? We give life. So we need that part. So how do you work with women in that area? And what have you seen have been some of the misconceptions that surround sensuality and sexuality?
So I want to talk a little bit broader first, because I know we were talking about rage and just all of the different parts of the dark feminine are parts of ourselves that we suppress. And when we suppress those feelings, those emotions, it turns into physical problems in our bodies or emotional states. If you're suppressing so much anger and rage, then it just comes out whenever you don't want it to. If you're suppressing, if you're not setting and enforcing healthy boundaries, it turns into resentment and you lose relationships over it. So, just talking about how suppressing the parts of ourselves that are natural that we should be embracing and learning to embrace in healthy ways, um, so it doesn't manifest as disease or abandonment. I see a lot of women abandon themselves to please other people. I am also a recovering rage addict slash people pleaser, which is a weird combination. But when you don't learn how to control these emotions in a healthy way, it does manifest differently, and sometimes it shows up in your body, and it shows up in ways that you don't want it to. And I think sensuality is definitely one of those because um, so many women have given up their autonomy when it comes to sensuality. They're doing things to please other people. They're ignoring their own needs and wants.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up also with resentment, with guilt, with shame, with fear, and all of these things. And so there's a lot to unpack there with the sensuality because we should be sexy and be comfortable because being authentic, when you feel authentic, you feel like you are yourself, then you don't care so much about other people's opinions because you know that those people aren't meant for you. And I
Mm.
think we we put on this representative is what I call it. And it's like the person that shows up if you go to a job interview or a first date. It's the person that you're like, this is all of me wrapped in this one little like package. Here's my representative. And sometimes people forget that that's just a representative. Or or there's some people that don't have a representative. Not everybody does, but a majority of people have that person. And then they build these deep, meaningful relationships based on that representative, based on the person that they want other people to see and think and feel and know. And then they feel unfulfilled. There's this weird yearning for something and they can't quite put their fingers on it. And it's because they don't have deep, meaningful relationships with the real them. They have those relationships are built on that representative. So when you embrace your authenticity, you have real relationships because they're in love with the real you, not the version of you that you want them to believe you are or the version that you portray, but the real version of you. And then that in itself builds so much confidence because you don't care about the opinions of people that aren't there for the real version of you. Um, you learn to love yourself. And when you learn to love yourself, you put your needs first. Being selfish isn't a bad word. And we were all, well, I can't say we were all, but majority of us were raised to think that being selfish was bad. You have to share this. You have to give this to why? You can't pour from an empty cup. And there's so many times where I was trying to pour from an empty cup and I'm giving lackluster versions of myself to these people because I'm drained and I'm empty. And then they're resenting me because I can't give them the full version that they're used to having. And so it's a vicious cycle. So when you show up for you first, you'd be surprised how many different areas of your life that it affects. So being the real authentic version of you, you automatically feel more confident, you feel sexier, you feel more powerful. You feel like you can say no without over explaining or people pleasing. And there's just so much that goes into that. And yeah, and being sensual is perfectly fine. And speaking for yourself and your body and what you like and what you don't like is so important to have those deep, meaningful relationships.
Oh my God. Everything you just said, 100%. I absolutely love it. Just wrapping up here, Layla, can you share with the audience, like, how can people get in touch with you? How can they be coached to their dark feminine? How can they find mentorship in you if they're interested in being mermaids? Like, drop it on me. Let me know how we can communicate with you.
So as far as being a mermaid, we call it a mersona. And my mersona is Siren Slayla, which when I talk about the dark feminine, I have 12 different archetypes, and the siren is one of them, obviously. So my mersona is Siren Slayla, and you can find her on all social medias. If it's something that you're interested in doing, I would love to be a mentor or help or guide because that was how I got into it. So just send a message. Um, in the dark feminine, I am on all social medias as Layla Dawn Does Life or under Do Life Coaching. And I'm sure you'll post all the links. I'll send them to you so you have them. But yeah, I'm just and LinkedIn is an easy one too. LinkedIn has all of the things.
What would you give as a piece of advice to those who want to explore that dark side of themselves?
The best way to explore the dark side is to go within and look at your shadows. What are things, what are the parts of you that you're hiding? What is there something you wish you could be more like blah blah blah? Um, if you wish that you could be that, you are that.
Mhm. Oh my God, I love it. The advice of the times, you know? Thank you so much, Layla. This has been such a great conversation. The time has gone by so fast, and I hope you
It
and I do
has.
keep in touch. Okay, everybody, you heard her. You know, I'm gonna drop all the links in the description, and I hope you reach out to her and reach out for your own dark feminine. All right, everybody, love you guys. Bye.